Hello everybody and welcome back to FantasyFootballFix.com and to your Game Week 7 episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm. If you're new to the series, do of course make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel as a whole, but this is the series where we take the computer-generated team put together by the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm that's calculated to score the highest amount of points for this upcoming game week, and then I put together my own free hit team and we see who can actually score the most points, the man or the machine, which is better at FPL. Well, we'll see at the end of the season, so make sure, as mentioned, to subscribe so you can follow along. But let's get into it, shall we, and see how the computer team is lining up ahead of Game Week 7. And kicking things off with the goalkeeper for the algorithm is once again going to be Robert Sanchez, who's been quite a regular feature in these algorithm teams if you've been following along for the course of the season so far. But they of course play Bournemouth, which is a very, very nice fixture on paper, one of the worst attacks in the league, but did manage to put 3 past Nottingham Forest in Game Week 6, so that's some signs of a promising attack. Maybe we'll even be looking to jump on Dominic Solanke in a few weeks, who knows. But Sanchez still looks like a great option for Game Week 7. But one thing that I did want to mention here, I know it's not specific to Game Week 7, but if you are considering bringing in any Brighton players or Crystal Palace players, that game for Brighton against Crystal Palace in Game Week 8 has been postponed due to rail strikes. So definitely don't be bringing in any of those players for 1 week punts because you're not going to have them in Game Week 8. They'll have a blank fixture there, so you won't be able to play your players. This does mean they'll get a double game week in the future, which should be nice and tasty, but for now, hold off on bringing in any Brighton or Crystal Palace players unless you're looking to wildcard next game week in Game Week 8, in which case it's fine to have a 1 week punt on Brighton assets, as the algorithm team is doing every week by changing its team every week with unlimited transfers. It's essentially just having a team of 1 week punts every single week of the season, and that's where Sanchez becomes a good option for that game against Bournemouth. In defence then, we're seeing 3 defenders for the first time, I think, in a while. We've not seen the 3-5-2, I think, this season at all from the algorithm, so it's interesting to see that in terms of formation. But Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Gabriel are the defenders that make up the back 3, and people who saw Liverpool's display against Napoli on Wednesday night will probably be questioning their decision to go with a Liverpool double-up. But Wolves don't look like one of the strongest attacks in the league by any stretch of the imagination, actually managing to score as many goals as they've kept clean sheets so far this season, being 3 across the first 6 game weeks. So Robertson and Trent still have a decent chance of a clean sheet there. You'll say it's one of the easiest fixtures at home for clean sheet potential on paper. Liverpool have just looked rubbish from a defensive aspect. Trent and Robertson, Trent especially, has looked pretty lazy, to be honest. I don't know whether Klopp will be able to turn that around by the weekend and kind of get them back up into the Liverpool that we used to know, and maybe repeat Bournemouth after coming from a loss, going in and hammering a team could be something that we could see. You never know. So Robertson and Trent still look like decent options. I would recommend holding on to them if you probably own them for 1 more week. But yeah, the signs aren't looking promising. I'm looking to ship off them very soon on my wildcard, will probably be what I'm doing. But for this week, I'll be holding on to them, and it's nice to see them predicted to score highly. Gabriel is the other defender who faces Everton at home. It's a very nice fixture for Arsenal. Once again, Everton, not one of the strongest attacks in the league at all. So yeah, going for Gabriel, who of course has quite a significant set-piece threat as well, and is now quite a similar price to Saliba with all the price rises he's been having. It is interesting to see that Gabriel and Saliba, we might have to end up picking between the two if Arsenal defence does become an option again in the near future. The fixtures are becoming a little bit more sketchy, however. I know Everton this week is a good one, but in the future, they're not looking as good as they were for the opening game weeks of the season, where they did have a very nice run of green. But yeah, Gabriel for this week still looks very good, and he always could get something from a set piece, as mentioned. In midfield then, we're seeing a midfield 5 that completes the Liverpool triple up, with Mohamed Salah still making the team. I know his data from last season will be carried forward, and his data from this season still isn't looking terrible. I've considered selling Mohamed Salah myself, or not having him in some of these teams, but when you spread the funds out, can you get better value elsewhere? I'm not sure there are too many other premiums who look like decent options. Of course, there's De Bruyne, Harry Kane could be an option up top as well, but for now, Mitrovic, Isak and Tony, they all look like really good options to provide some decent value up top, so we've almost been limited by having only 3 striking options to not being able to go for Harry Kane, just due to how great the value is up front at the moment. But Salah's still a decent option against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Ever since he's got a new contract, he doesn't look brilliant in the league. He's getting a lot more touches out wide. As I've mentioned in previous videos, he's taking a lot of those shots a lot less shots than last season. He's taking more of those touches in the wider positions, and he's generally just not seeing as many touches in those areas that look promising to getting attacking returns in FPL. We've then got Maddison in midfield as well, up against Aston Villa, who haven't looked too great this season so far. I'm not sure many people would have been predicting that Thomas Tuchel would leave before Steven Gerrard does, but that has in fact happened. And Maddison, of course, very involved when Leicester do well. I'm sure he'll be involved if Leicester get something against Aston Villa. With Iheanacho, Daka, Vardy, we don't know who's going to be playing up front. Maddison certainly looks like the best Leicester option to own at the moment. We've then got Harrison, which is an interesting pick, and you'll see who I've got instead of Harrison in just a moment, but he is predicted quite high on the computer's predictions, so it's interesting to see that. I think he's playing a little bit wide for my liking. His expected goal statistics aren't quite up there with some of the other Leeds midfielders, so I'll be steering away from Harrison, as I will be with McAllister as well. McAllister was actually one who was in the algorithm team last week, and of course scored a magnificent point total, which actually meant that the algorithm did beat me in game week 6. I just think too much of his underlying data is reliant on penalties. There's too much resting on penalties for McAllister. I do prefer Trossard or Pascal Gross as an option for that fixture against Bournemouth especially. But as mentioned, don't be transferring in someone like a McAllister. I probably wouldn't go for him anyway out of the Brighton picks, as I've just said. But that game week 8 fixture where he'll have a blank is going to be the main selling point for why you don't want to go with any Brighton or Palace assets for your transfers in this week, unless you're playing the wild card in game week 8. And then finally, Martinelli, who looks too good to drop at the moment, really. With that home game against Everton, he'll be lacking Jordan Pickford, it looks like, who seems to be ruled out with an injury. And then finally, up front, the other Arsenal asset, which I was assuming would be in there, does appear, with Gabriel Jesus partnering Erling Haaland up top. And Erling Haaland taking the captaincy armband is something interesting. We discussed captaincy in the quick guide video yesterday, if you want to go ahead and check that out, and why I think Erling Haaland's also the captain I'll be going for too, even though he's playing Tottenham at home, which looks like a tougher fixture than Wolves at home for Liverpool or Everton at home for Arsenal. So Salah, Martinelli, Jesus, these guys could be captaincy options too, but I'm sticking the armband on the Norwegian this week. Finally, on the bench, we'll round off with Lewis Dunk as the first supposition. We've then got Nico Williams and Sturridge, but no features from the algorithm's bench have been happening really in recent weeks, so the bench is pretty irrelevant in these videos, but the first 11 certainly looks very nice indeed. When we look at my team and what I've gone for, I have made some changes, however. I've made the formation switch to a 3-4-3. I've gone with Reece James in. I've got with Cancelo in. So I've changed around the back line. I know Cancelo's playing Tottenham, and I've seen some people even benching Cancelo this week, but I think it's still a great week to own him. And to be honest, I'd be likely to play Cancelo against any team in the league at the moment. I know his underlying data isn't brilliant. We keep mentioning this on the channel, it seems, but Cancelo is that type of player who can just get anything from a big game, especially. He's done it against big teams in the past, especially last season. He's done it in the Champions League in midweek as well. He does almost seem undroppable at the moment, especially for the players I've got on the bench in this side. I've then got Reece James too, and I'm not actually that hopeful of a Chelsea clean sheet against Fulham. I just think that Reece James's attacking threat also makes him a top player to own at the moment. In midfield, as I mentioned, with McAllister, I prefer Pascal Gross, and that's why I've gone for him instead. Just less reliant on penalties. He did drop a little bit deeper at times in the last Brighton game, but I still think he is a more superior option to going for McAllister. And then instead of Harrison, I've gone with Sinistera, who I do prefer as an option, and it's a little bit going under the radar when it comes to the computer-generated predictions with regards to the Leeds assets. They face Nottingham Forest, of course, a very, very nice fixture on paper, who have the worst expected goals conceded in the league so far this season of any side. And then finally, I've gone with Tony up front. Instead of going with a front two, I've added him in against Southampton, who haven't looked the absolute worst side in the league, but Tony's just in that kind of form at the moment where he does seem to be scoring for absolute fun, so I've got him back into the team as well. Let me know who you think is going to score more points this week. As always, the predicted points go in favour of the algorithm, as that is the team that they have predicted to score the highest amount of points. Comment down below your Team Eddie or Team Algorithm ahead of Game Week 7. I'm interested to see whether I can get back on top and restore my ego with a victory over a computer-generated team. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, everyone. I wish you the best of luck for Game Week 7, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.